Welcome to the Fanatical Elfz Show, part of the Elfz Network. We are a bunch of wild and crazy Cleveland Browns fans, bringing you all the latest in Browns news. Tune in now. Everybody, it is the Fanatical Elfz Show, and we are your wild and crazy hosts. I'm John Suchan. This is Steve Gill, and we are excited you are here on this Thursday night. We're going to talk about the Browns, of course. It has been a full week. We have lots to talk about, coming off of a heartbreaking loss to the Seattle Seahawks. Steve, how are you doing this evening?
Doing great. Spent my day getting ready to write my article for clevelandsportstalk.com, my preview article, Cardinals versus Browns, why am I watching? And I also would take a break every once in a while, listen to the new Beatles single.
Ooh, the new
Probably
Beatles
their
single.
last one. Yes, it's really weird to hear a 40-year-old John Lennon and an 80-year-old Paul McCartney in a recording singing perfect harmony with guitar licks by George Harrison and drums by Ringo Starr. I am a diehard Beatles fan. I've been one
cool.
since they first came to Cleveland in September of 1964. I have never wavered for my support for the Beatles. I love everything they do. That's why I have Sirius XM in my car just for the Beatles channel.
Oh my gosh, that is loyalty. That's great.
I love them.
So they put a
They
new
never
song.
disappoint. Not unlike the Browns, they never disappoint.
Well, I think I listened to your show at the beginning of the week, Dog Pound South. Check it out. Steve Gill does a great job. Brings it every Monday, and he kind of got the ball rolling this week with kind of our reactions to everything. Yeah,
listen to your show as well, John.
Yes, well, and I think we were all disappointed. But you consider everything that went on in that game. We had a chance to, some of us, Rod Bloom, who does the Browns Blitz, and Joel Cade, who does the What the Elf Was That. We all met together over in Dayton and watched the game together. And the game got off to a rocky start. 14-0, looked really bleak, came back. I was really impressed just how the offense, and again, behind PJ Walker, who everyone is still wanting to bash because of some other things that happened later in the game. He helped, and the team got back in it. They Coach Stefanski. I did my Overreaction Monday show, and in support of good old Steady Eddie, because I have been a critic of Kevin over the years. But again, watching that game and seeing how it progressed and how it ended up, there's been a lot of critics out there, just crazy, silly, stupid Browns fans who are trying to really bash Kevin for a 3rd down and 3 play that didn't work out because it was not executed. And unfortunately, a helmet got in the way and it was bad luck. And, I was really at the moment watching that game, and I don't know about you, Steve. I kind of wanted your reaction to that. I know you kind of talked about it early in the week, but at the moment seeing that, what I thought after that happened, and obviously it was bad luck, but I said, okay, well, this is another opportunity for the Cleveland Browns defense to put together a stop. They got the ball at the Seahawks started at close to their 40 or 45 yard line. They still needed to get at least 20 or 30 yards to get in within field goal range. And even beyond that, let's say they just give them the field goal, we go to overtime. But instead, the Seahawks just managed to easily work their way down and scored a touchdown. And I like Jim Schwartz. I like our defense. We've been able to put strings of stopping series against teams like the 49ers, teams like the Seahawks. But again, they faltered. And so when that happened, that was really what I was thinking about at the end of the game, was how too easy it was again. And the Browns had an opportunity and they just blew it. And I wasn't really upset with the offense as much as everybody's trying to critique Kevin and PJ Walker. Steve, what do you think about everything?
Well, I was very impressed with the offense. We saw more screen passes than I think we've seen, and they were all well executed. I mean, over the middle, left, right. We finally got to see how good Pierre Strong is. Thank you. I've been calling for them to play him more. Kareem Hunt looks like Kareem Hunt again. It's just I'm worried about this defense. Third week in a row, they're giving up a 100-yard rusher. Like I said on Monday, they played 7 games, and only 2 of them they had less than 10 missed tackles, and that was the first game against the Bengals and against the Titans. People are running on them. This was a little concern of mine with the Jim Schwartz defense when they are making such an effort. And he mentioned this today. It was coordinator day up in Berea. He mentioned this when you're put so much pressure on the quarterback, you create running lanes. And what's the problem is the linebackers and the safeties have to cover those lanes. And you're seeing Delpit out of position. You saw that a lot in the first half in Indianapolis. Juan Thornhill, he's a great pickup, but his big knock was he wasn't a very good tackler. And
he got exposed. He got exposed in that last play of the game.
He got exposed in this game, just like Delpit got exposed in the first half versus the Colts. So, I fully expect them to get healthy this week against the Cardinals. James Conner is on IR, and his backup has not practiced in 2 days. So, and he had 195 yards against the
Baltimore
Ravens last week. So
195.
Their offensive line is a good run blocking group.
Okay.
But they're high up in the rankings in rushing offense because James Conner was healthy, and he's not healthy anymore. And this other guy is not healthy. I don't know who they're going to start at running back. I can't imagine them. They're going to start Kyler Murray coming off ACL, and we're going to get to see Mr. Toon.
Well, my nightmare as a Browns fan, and this goes back a couple of years, but when the Browns still were with Baker Mayfield and all that group, I think it was 2019. Cardinals came in, and that was a completely different team, obviously, with Kyler Murray.
JJ Watt show.
Yes, and they crushed us at
home. The
last
time they played there, they crushed the Browns with Kyler Murray. I think that was 2021.
That was out in Arizona, right?
No, it was in Cleveland. Yeah,
okay.
Both of the last 2 games. It's just Kyler Murray, I think, is 2-0 versus the Browns.
Well, that's why I feel like they're going to start him, but you don't think they will. Okay.
I don't think they will. I didn't see any notes about practicing. Yesterday, he was on the side throwing to the practice squad players, and this Clayton Tune, I think that's his name. Yeah, Clayton Tune, Thune, was throwing to the first teamer. So I think they're going to throw him out there.
Yeah.
It's, here we are on Thursday, and neither team knows who their starting quarterback is.
And do you think part of that, though, is strategy, right? I mean,
it's gamesmanship. Yeah.
Right. You're trying not to, because the Browns don't know who to prepare for. The Cardinals don't know who exactly to prepare for. And so it's just sort of this chess battle going back between the two teams.
Yep.
That's probably more of what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about Deshaun here in just a minute. No, just final takes on, that game. Boy, as a Browns fan, at the beginning of that game, like we said, they got down 14-0. They fought back, got back in. It took the lead, had 37 minutes of time of possession to Seattle's 23. And
that's the thing. Yeah. I mean, they control the clock in just about every game.
And like you said, Steve, they have in your podcast. I'm glad you brought this to the forefront. The last 3 games, the Browns running backs have averaged about 150, 160 yards. Tremendous.
Yeah.
Tremendous. All these people still tearing down. Even today, I hear people criticizing the Browns run game and the Browns passing game still. And I'm thinking, I know we're not elite, maybe, and we don't have we don't have the names of running back right now, but we're putting some nice numbers together. And again, we put some nice numbers together, but it was at the expense of a loss. So that's kind of disappointing.
Yeah. Well, they're using the short passing game to set up the run, and it's working. And the offensive line for the third week in a row has played very well.
Yes.
I mean, it's amazing the difference pre-bye week and post-bye week.
Well,
I don't know what Bill Callahan did to change things, but whatever it is, he's a genius because they're playing really well as a group.
DeJuan Jones got injured.
Practiced today.
Oh, he did. Shoulder injury.
And Jedrick Wills did practice. He both practiced today. So that's good.
And you said David Bell was on the sideline. Some people thought
was on the sideline. Yeah.
DPJ got traded.
Did you notice in the second half of the Seattle game that Elijah Moore was returning punts and not DPJ?
I did not notice that.
I noticed it right off, and I thought, oh, okay, he might be part of a package, trading package, because he wasn't going to resign next year, and you might as well get something for him.
Right. I mean, and it's nice that they got, like Joel said, they got a 6th-round pick, which is what he got drafted as, a 6th-round pick, and Joel described it as brilliance on the part of Andrew Berry. And that Browns front office getting 4 years, then getting that 6th-round pick back. And he was explaining how other great teams in the past, like the Patriots, have done this for a decade or two, where they get the maximum amount of production out of these picks, these 4th, 5th, 6th rounders, and then they get them back. They trade them away, and so I'll tell you what, DPGA doesn't. You never, like, there's a guy in this Browns team who you never really heard a lot from personally, but when you did, and what you saw him doing, like on social media, some of the things he was very much into the community and helping and going to hospitals and meeting with kids. And kids from Michigan, and I know some people didn't like that, those of us who live here in the Buckeye State, but I always appreciated him as a player. I thought he really handled, being a Cleveland Brown very well.
Oh yeah. I mean, he wasn't the fastest. He was put in advantageous situations when he made big plays. Yeah. He blocked well in the run game. When you have Nick Chubb, you kind of have to help out. And probably his greatest strength was he was very good in with contested catches. I mean, that was his thing. But this year, with all the different quarterbacks thrown, he just kind of got lost in the shuffle. And the emergence of David Njoku, who's just having a phenomenal season. I don't hear anybody complaining about that contract this year. I mean, he's just having a season. And if we can get some consistent quarterback play, I think Elijah Moore will get a lot more catches.
When you watch,
I think he leads the teams in reception, but he's always open. And it drives me crazy.
PJ Walker in the game Sunday. I remember at some point, maybe it was late second, or probably early third quarter, they showed his stat line. And what I remember thinking to myself was, that's a pretty good day so far. He was, at that point, it was like 13 of 17 or 18 for 200 and some
13,
yards. And then,
13,
but then
I think it was 13 of 18 because I saw that same stat line.
Yes. And then he never, I think he hit 1 or 2 more passes the rest of or maybe 3 more, 4 more. I forget how many he finished with, but it ballooned where he had incompletion after incomplete. He was at a lot more. So, but I mean, early on, I looked at that and I'm going, I wanted to take a snapshot saying, this kid, he's doing what he needs to be doing. Now he faltered at the end, but I just get really annoyed with our fan base sometimes who are so quick. And I know Joel talked about this on his show. We're going to talk about it a little bit after the break about social media, but I just thought, again, I don't think we're giving PJ Walker enough credit. I think he's 2-1. I think he's helped his team win 2 games, and he's not chopped liver. The kid's not just crap. I know he's inconsistent, but I feel every time he goes out there, I'm feeling pretty confident. Now, I know he's messing up and throwing interceptions and doing some things or bumbling the ball once in a while, but no, really, come on now. Like, you look at other quarterbacks around the league. It wasn't like Deshaun Watson, even when he was in there. I mean, obviously he's a much better, experienced quarterback, top 15, top 20, top 10 quarterback, but he wasn't doing anything fancy. Beyond the things we already know about Deshaun. I mean, the kid can run, right. He can create. PJ Walker's not exactly like that, but I just think we should be giving PJ a little bit more respect. And this idea of, well, we need to go to DTR, like PJ Walker started the last 3 games. I mean, I think for consistency,
they're 2-1 in those games.
Exactly.
And the team is 4-3, and they've given the ball away 17 times, most in the league. And any team that does that should be like 2-5.
Yes.
The only reason they're 4-3, and I know people don't want to hear this, but it's because of Kevin Stefanski. We call him Steady Eddie because he's a steadying influence. I mean, that game calling prior to that 3rd and 3, if you're going to complain about that 3rd and 3 and say fire him, you got to turn around and say for the rest of the game, he called a damn good game.
Oh, it was brilliant.
I mean, and the beginning of that Indianapolis game, when he saw Deshaun Watson didn't have it, he took him out and did not put him back in.
Exactly.
That's, growing as a coach. And he's also better at game management and his play calling. Forget about the 3rd and 3. If that thing didn't bounce off the helmet, it would have been first down. The guy was open. He was throwing to. Mm-hmm. Get the first down, chew up clock, game over. Browns come home. They're 5-2 and nobody's talking about it. But there's a segment of the fans who just don't like Kevin Stefanski, and I don't get it.
Well, we're going to switch. We're going to talk a little bit about Deshaun after the break and about social media. So this is the Fanatical Elfz Network. I'm your host, John Suchan, and I'm along here with my co-host, Steve Gill, and we will be right back. And we are back here on the Fanatical Elfz Show. Hope you enjoyed those commercials. And so we were talking about the Browns and how, yes, the Browns had a tough loss against Seattle, and now we're gearing up for the Cardinals. We've talked a little bit about it already, but I'm going to show this little. We're going to talk about Deshaun. This has kind of been circulating in social media, and so I wanted to show everybody this. Maybe you've seen this on different platforms, but this is the Deshaun injury cycle. It's hilarious because we had one for Baker Mayfield. And they've just put in new categories, but this is pretty, we are here. Deshaun comes back to practice, which he did on Friday. Fans get excited for his return. Watson holds a presser, which he did. I think was that earlier today, saying he wants to play.
I listened.
Stefanski holds a presser to reinforce he is completely clueless of the whole situation, which I haven't heard yet. And then we're going to watch for Watson as it being a late scratch on Sunday. And then it starts all over again. So that is the Deshaun Watson. If you're listening to our podcast on Apple or Spotify, I have the graphic of that cycle. We have been I went back and I looked at all the podcasting that we've been doing talking about this. This happened in week 3, right after we played the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, he got hurt in week 3.
And then it was
gearing up. Week 4 was Baltimore.
And he went out there. Yeah. And then it was a late scratch. And then they had their bye. And we've been dealing with that in weeks 6, 7, and 8 now. We've completed. So we're going to week 9, I believe, for the season.
Week 9.
But we're in game 8 for the Brownies. So where do you, with all this whole Deshaun Watson, I'll remove our wonderful graphic. Where do you fall on all this? You said before the show off air that you think that he will play on Sunday.
I think he's going to play.
Okay.
I'm no doctor. I'm not there. All these videos that the reporters put out, it's after the portion of the practice that they watch. They're not allowed to tweet while they're watching. So when they shut down the practice to the media, they all haul ass out of there, and they're all going crazy, putting the stuff out. Before the Indy game, he was grabbing at that harness. And the tosses were really, really light tosses. I don't see him going to his arm a lot. I see smooth passing, smooth arm. I'm looking at the arm movement. All the reporters were looking to see if he had zip on the ball.
Right.
That's now the new dirty word on social media with Cleveland is zip. And I'm looking at what he's doing before he throws it and after he throws it.
Okay, but Steve,
I've had arm problems before, and when you got a sore arm, you do something, you go, oh damn.
So let me ask you about this though, Steve, because there was a video circulating yesterday that there were some people in social media land complaining, or fellow fans who said they saw Watson kind of shaking his arm out, after the one throw that they showed on a video, like it was affecting him. And so people would go all crazy about it. Oh, but he's not ready. He's gonna, it's still, now there is the mental side to all of this. Did it fall off?
Did he pick it back up and reattach it?
Now you and I have talked about this, and I've touched on a few of my podcasts, but I still think, and I think some people, some Browns fans, quite a few probably, and I've had a conversation or two with many, more than a few of fans that were throwing in this whole mental thing, and that's kind of going back to our, our graphic here, that there is potentially some sort of mental side to this, but you and I disagree on this a little bit. I still think there is. You think you're sticking to the medical side of it, which, I'm probably off base at times.
But if there's a mental thing, he wouldn't want to come back and play. He would have said before the Baltimore game, I need to rest my arm. And we wouldn't have been going through this since before the bye week.
But no,
I mean, that's human nature. I mean, he wants to get back. I thought he addressed this last week with his news conference. He was very forthright in his answers, and he basically said, I wouldn't be doing all this work if I didn't want to play.
But so Steve, this is okay. I'm sorry. I just my what I wanted to ask you on this point is, he's going out there, he's doing all these things, he's throwing the ball. The mental part, I don't see that as the mental part or the issue. I see the mental block as him doing this, and like this cycle thing that we were just showing, and he can do those things, and he gets to that moment, that critical moment. It's almost building up to a point where it's been 5 or 6 weeks now, and everyone's talking about it all the time. He's had all this enormous amount of pressure on him just because of who he is and what's happened in his life. And now you get to those moments, and for some reason, I just feel like there's something that he's just freezing up, almost like he's fearful of taking that next step. And then he gets hit like 2 weeks ago against the Colts. He's lying out there, we all think, oh gosh, he's done. So I don't know. I guess that's the part that I'm at with the mental. When I talk about the mental, I think he can go do all these things. And I know that you're saying that he wants to play, and he's preparing to play, but I just think there's just something in between that and getting onto that field on Sunday.
Is there apprehension in his thinking that if he gets hit again, that could be the end of the season? Yeah, sure. That's human nature. Does he feel pressure? Sure. I mean, everybody keeps mentioning his contract. I'm sure he feels pressure to get back on the field. You know, Cleveland fans aren't the easiest to please right now and
No.
forever. I mean, we let's face facts. Sometimes we're very terrible people,
Yes.
especially on social media. So, you know, yeah. Is he frustrated that he couldn't come back and play when the team needed him? Sure, he's frustrated. I mean, there's a bunch of different emotions in doing this kind of stuff. I don't, we'll know if he starts against Arizona, and I'm thinking he's going to. Let's see what he does. I mean, he started slow against Tennessee because the previous
He
game
did.
against Pittsburgh, you
Right.
know, everybody blamed him for the loss because of the strip sack and all that. But
Right.
then after the Tennessee guy roughed him by hitting him in the throat, which
Mm,
nobody mentions, he came off the
mm,
field briefly. He
mm.
completed his next 3 passes, and the
That's a good
third
point.
one was a touchdown pass. And
Right.
boom, he was off and rolling. So I think if he plays, if he gets into that kind of groove,
Hmm.
he'll be fine.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I want to see him play. Everybody wants to see him play. Um, you know, we are impatient fans. Let's talk about that a little bit because we spend a lot of time, this Fanatical Elves show. We are part of, we have various social media platforms. That's how we're building our product. And we started this back in April. And we want to thank all of you who tune in, watch us, listen to us on Apple, Spotify, watch us on YouTube. We have gained popularity on these social media platforms, and that's because of you guys tuning in and listening. So make sure you follow, make sure you subscribe. We love producing and talking about the Cleveland Browns. So with that, um, I thought it was really unique. Our colleague Rod Bloom of the Browns Blitz wrote a really clever article. I don't know if you got to see it, Steve,
I saw
on
that. Yeah.
on Fans First. He
Yeah.
texted me a couple nights before he wrote it, and he said this is what he was doing, and I thought it was such a unique idea. And he's a great writer. Writes books and works for some magazine production. Anyway, the article is basically he looks back as though 1986,
Right.
the 1986 Brown season happened, occurred after the beginning of social media. So Twitter and Facebook and all this stuff started back then in the mid 80s, early 80s, mid 80s. So it was a great new product. And like we have it now in current time, but he went back in time and acted as though we were following the old 86 Browns, Bernie Kosar, Brian Brennan, Webster Slaughter, Marty Schottenheimer is the coach.
The
And
12-4 Browns.
yes. But he talked in terms of like, yeah, the season got off to a rough start. The team actually started out at 1-2, I think. They lost 2 of their first 3 games, and how this
Yep.
city was, the fan base was on Twitter and saying all these nasty things about Schottenheimer. And it was really, I mean, you think about it, like this is like a piece that could have been 40 years ago. I mean, 37
Right.
years ago. And to put it back in that light for us older Browns fans who are actually there and watch these teams without social media, without podcasts like our Fanatical Elfz show to listen to all our Browns takes. I thought it was really cool, neat story writing,
It was
and
very clever. Very,
yeah,
very clever. I enjoyed it.
you remember like the social. Well, I guess I don't know what my question is exactly, but I think it's this whole era of sports
Either
media
word
now.
would have worked.
I know there are a lot of for example, there are seasoned radio personalities that I speak to. Mark the Munch Bishop, who writes for, or he's ESPN Radio up in Cleveland and worked for other products, and even like who I interviewed a few weeks ago, Bruce Hooley. These guys have been around for a long time. They worked on radio, and they've talked about, podcasting. I know Mark Munch Bishop has talked about really not liking, this whole concept of podcasting because, folks like me and you, we can do it, and we don't have all that veteran experience or background in radio or DJing like they did. Right, you have, right, and I will say
2.5 years.
I will say this. I started when I was 12 years old. I'll never forget. I've told this story probably a time or two, but I got interested in radio when I was growing up in Worcester, Ohio, and at the College of Worcester, they had a radio like summer thing where you could learn about the radio, and I remember I got to go on the weekends. We got to spin records and anyway, but I guess it's like the whole business, and Joel kind of touched on this in his show on What the Elf Was That this week. I mean, social media has just kind of overtaken everything, and I guess we could just all turn it off and not, and that's what some people choose to do. But those of us who are still on it and follow it, we see so much negativity, so much bashing, which is just not necessary. And it just seems a lot of it, especially on Twitter and the X and some of that kind of platform, seems like it's just rampant right now with negativity and people that just shouldn't be able to say stuff. What do you think about all this?
Well, they should call it I told you so media, because that's why these people are doing it. They're making these comments and everything, and if it should happen to be right, oh my goodness, guess who's the first one to come on here and say, I told you. It's right. It's, well, you saw a great example of it Tuesday up until the trade deadline. 99% of what was said about the Browns and who they were looking at wasn't true. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could go on there and say, well, they're talking to, so-and-so and so-and-so team. They've made an offer. No, wasn't true. You look at what Andrew Berry's done in the past, and I knew they weren't going to do anything. Mm-hmm. I kind of hope they, get a pass rusher, nobody big name, just to, mm-hmm. Get a guy that you can put in there on third down. But, mm-hmm. that didn't happen, and I'm not hurt about it. Mm-hmm. Andrew Berry does his best work before mm-hmm. the season starts. So, and during games, I don't even get on my phone.
It seems so illogical. I mean, still like the Jacoby Brissett conversation. I don't know. Right. And I don't know why some, even local media in Cleveland, and even some of these podcasters that are, so-called more popular, they were really promoting, like saying, oh, this would be great. I'm like, no, why there's so many reasons why it's not great. Like, it's not great. And Andrew Berry would never do that. And nonsense, just nonsense.
Well, if the Watson injury, if they knew the Watson injury was going to be a long lasting thing, then yeah, they would have went out and picked up a quarterback. But they feel it's not long lasting. He has looked good the last couple of days. I'm no doctor. I still think this is the perfect get well game for him before he goes into that gauntlet of at Baltimore and hosting Pittsburgh. This is a perfect team to do it. Their secondary isn't their secondary is terrible. I know they have Budda Baker. He's an all-pro safety, but all the other guys, forget about it. I mean, quarters throw touch. And that's another thing a lot of fans are upset about. They've only thrown one touchdown pass to a wide receiver.
Yeah.
And that was Amari Cooper week 3 against Tennessee. And I can understand that. It's a passing league now. But, consistent quarterback play will cure those ills. So let's just, social media, they all think they're a head coach. They confuse fantasy football with what GMs really do for a living.
That's an interesting, that is really, I agree. I think that part we're not talking about enough, but this whole fantasy league stuff. It's really
Well,
kind
a
of
lot of
crept
people are
in.
mad at Deshaun Watson because they picked him up against Baltimore thinking he was going to play on their fantasy team. And, too late. Can't change it. Well,
Well,
that doesn't really have anything to do with your fantasy league. Has nothing to do with the Cleveland Browns. I hate to tell you this.
Let's talk about this AFC North real quick. The Pittsburgh Steelers are playing Tennessee Titans tonight on Thursday Night Football, and then where do you
Will Levis?
Where do you think the Browns right now? Where is this game against the Cardinals doesn't mean as much, but like Joel and Elliot were talking on their Browniacs that then they get it. Then they have to play the Steelers, and then they play Baltimore here coming up pretty quick. Where do you think I mean, these two games are going to be true and rough and tough. Do you think the Browns stand a chance? And do you think the Browns still are in a good position to win the division? And if they don't win the division, how many teams do you think from the AFC North get to the playoffs? Because right now, Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow are starting to catch fire.
Well, I think these next two games determine if they can still win the division. If they can somehow go into Baltimore, let's say they will beat Arizona. Arizona's not a very good team, but I should never take any team for granted. Just ask Kansas City last week versus Denver. But they should beat Arizona. They're at home. It's not going to be the greatest weather in the world, I hear. So then they go to Baltimore. Very tough game. Yeah. Then they host Pittsburgh, another tough game. If they can manage to beat Pittsburgh and Baltimore, then they have a great shot of winning the division. And you're right about Cincinnati. Cincinnati, if the playoffs started right now, 3 teams from the AFC North would be in the playoffs, and the Bengals aren't one of them. Think about that.
Wow. Well, could we get all 4 teams in? Is that possible?
No, I don't think. No, there's 3 wild cards. Well, it's possible. It is possible. Yeah. But I can't see that happening. Cincinnati's starting to scare me a little bit. They really slapped around San Francisco. Or maybe San Francisco wasn't as great as everybody thought they were. Maybe they crowned them a little too early. It's a long season. And, right now San Francisco's going down, and other teams like Cincinnati are on their way up.
Yeah.
But
I think the overall picture, though, and I think as Browns fans, I think we've talked about it enough here, but it's something to share out again, is that where the Browns are right now compared to where they were 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago is so ginormously different and better.
Oh yeah.
And people have such short-term memory loss that they don't, like these fans who are ripping Kevin Stefanski right now. And, this is year 4. And, this is a good thing for the Cleveland Browns organization. And fans that want to part ways with Stefanski right now are just talking silly. And I understand, and I've been on that position before, but we talked about this coming into the season. But the Browns, like we know, are 4-3. If they were 1-7, they were right. And if they were 1-6 or 2-5, I would be a little bit more down. But I think we've seen, considering everything that's happened, that we're playing PJ Walker, and we've lost Nick Chubb, and we've lost Jack Conklin, all these things. This is pretty good. And if the Browns fans can't appreciate the fact that the Browns are playing in a tough division, but have an opportunity every year now to make the playoffs. Granted, we haven't made it for the last couple of years. It's a good place to be, and I'm happy where at a 4-3 record. If you and I both know this, if we were talking about this 8 weeks ago, and we said, well, if we were 4-3 at this point in the season, would you be happy? I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Because I was
this is kind of where I figured they would be, is 4-3. I mean, that was a tough first part of the schedule. People don't forget how much we all talked about it, how tough that schedule. As soon as the schedule was announced, everybody was like, oh boy, that front part of the schedule, man. But if they can make it through at 4-3 after 7, yeah, that would be pretty good. Well, here we are.
You said you've said a lot going into this season too. You said after week 6, you would be more. You would evaluate the team more. I mean, you've said that a time or two. We're going in the week. Well, the week
9.
8. So how do you assess the team, the Browns? Just as we're going to cut. We're going to finish up with your comments here.
Well, special teams are a lot better than I thought they'd be. I think they're ranked number 1 in efficiency. Defense is good. Are they the greatest defense ever? Are they the 85 Bears or the 2000 Ravens? No, they're not. You can still run on them. It's a little concerning. Last 3 games, they've allowed a late score by the opposition. They seem to, and for the 3rd game in a row, they started slow and ended slow.
Right.
So I'm a little worried about that. They're still a good defense. Now the offense, nobody saw all this quarterback stuff happening before the season started. But I hate to tell you this, if you want the Browns to make the playoffs and possibly go to the Super Bowl, you're going to have a healthy Deshaun Watson.
Right.
That's it. Bottom line. That's it. So going forward, let's see what he can do against a not a very good team in Arizona.
Yeah.
And get a little healthy, get some of that timing back for this rough stretch starts of these 2 games.
Yeah.
But if you look at the teams behind the Browns, do any of them really scare you? Do the Jets scare you?
No.
Do the Patriots scare you?
No.
I mean, every team has had bad games. I mean, Miami hangs 70, and then the next week they get drugged.
There really has been
Denver and loses. I mean, it's a weird NFL season. Quarterback play stinks throughout the league. I mean, right. Buffalo. Is Buffalo really that formidable right now? Not really. So,
it's a good point. Yeah.
Baltimore
and then you get
really good, but
you got Arizona quarterbacks going down left and right. You got Kirk Cousins going out for the season. You've got you got Jimmy Garoppolo being benched. I had an idea. Well, I know Tony Grossi loves Jimmy Garoppolo, and when I saw that he got benched by the Raiders this week, I had this thought running through my head: would the Browns consider bringing in Jimmy if we knew more? But we don't want to go down that road. We don't think everything. I think we think that Deshaun's going to be out there Sunday. So
I think so.
Yeah. Well, Steve,
even if he isn't, PJ Walker, it's going to be that bad. I mean,
no,
like I said,
I will be there.
This Cardinal team is not the greatest in the world.
Stepdaughter, wonderful daughter, Cara Marie, and I will be up at the game Sunday.
Oh, cool.
I'm hoping the midges, those little buggies, midges will be. I call them midgets, and I get in trouble. So the midgies, when I went to the game 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago with my lovely wife, Laura Jean, they were around a little bit at the stadium. Not like they were like last year when we played against the Los Angeles Chargers game. It was awful. And then I saw my cousins that live along the lake up there in Euclid. They were having the midges a lot that week after we last saw them play 3 weeks ago. So now we've had a couple hard freezes around the area. Now the lake, I don't think it got as cold up there. So I hope to God that the midges are gone, because seriously, like they were everywhere on you. They would coat you like you looked like you had a coat of bugs on you. It was terrible, but hopefully the Browns win. Steve, thank you so much for joining us again tonight. We'll try to bring you now. I will be traveling. I don't know, Steve, if you want to do a pregame show, but we can talk about that. We'll do some sort of pregame for you here on the Fanatical Elfz Network. Thanks for again following us on Apple and Spotify, folks. If you have a friend who is a Browns fan, tell them about the Fanatical Elfz, and they will enjoy listening to our entertaining shows. We've got Steve, who brings it every week with the Dog Pound South. I have my Johnny Cleveland podcast, which will be coming up here shortly. We do our What the Elf Was That, the Browniacs. We've got the new Oracle shows that the Village Elliott is producing, along with Rod Bloom's The Browns Blitz. You can't miss out, man. So much, so much. Thanks again, everybody. Steve, take care. Go Browns.
Go Browns.
See y'all later. See y'all later. Let me see if I can find my music. Gotta find my music. Where is it?
Find that music.
Uh-oh.
Today, that funky music, white boy.